Okay, we'll go ahead and call to order here. Welcome to this meeting of the Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority Board, July 9th, 2025. The meeting notice was posted according to the requirements of the Open Meeting Act. This meeting will come to order. Call roll, please.
First Congressional District Board Member Secretary Seth Phillips.
Here.
Second Congressional District Board Member Vice Chairman Kevin Potter.
Here.
Third Congressional District Board Member Charles Ortega.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Board Member Lindy Ritz.
Aye.
Fifth Congressional District Board Member Chairman Blake Rainey.
Here.
At-large Board Member Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Board Member Jerry Hunter. House-appointed Board Member Craig Campbell.
Here.
We have a quorum. First up is item 3, overview of the Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority and Senate Bill 912. Grayson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. That one's going to be hard to get used to. Probably take about the 18 months it took to get the Aeronautics Commission in my head and the Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics into it. So if I call you commissioners, I apologize in advance. Don't hold it against me. So Senate Bill 912, as we've talked about for quite a few meetings, was an effort led by the legislature, particularly Senator Paul Racino and Representative Nick Archer. It made it through the legislative session, became law without the governor's signature, and was effective July 1st. The team behind you has been really gearing up to accept and bring about the merger of OSIDA into the Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics. Of course, having to do that within about a 35-day window compressed a lot of things, and we are still working through some of those logistical challenges, but I can promise you that Chris and others are working through that as expediently as possible to get the merger complete. I believe we've got the HR stuff all wrapped up. Financial activities are going, and I think the last thing we have left to do is get everybody on the state network. But what I want to do with this agenda item today is kind of lay out the framework of what 912 does. This is not a consolidation. You've seen in state government history where one agency is consolidated into another. This is what I would call a merger. It's a consolidation adjacent activity. The agency that is OSIDA is still an agency. Those statutory responsibilities are still out there. The activities of OSIDA are still to be implemented as they once were, with a few minor tweaks. One of those tweaks is expanding this board to 9 members. Of course, we have our House-appointed member. We don't have a Senate-appointed member yet, but we'll soon hopefully have that. The existing OSIDA board is sunsetted, and you, as Aerospace and Aeronautics Commissioners, now also become the board of directors for the OSIDA mission. I, as the executive director of the Department of Aerospace, is also going to be the CEO of OSIDA, and really the only named employee of OSIDA. All of the OSIDA staff were merged into the Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics. They're all now Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics employees. And as a team, together, we will operate the mission sets that are OSIDA. And we'll talk about those here in a little bit. All of this, as blessed by the legislature, investigated by our general counsel and the Attorney General's office, is above board and meets all of the legal requirements as we so know it. We believe that moving forward, everything is going to be enhanced, grown, built upon what the successes OSIDA has had to date. This is a positive looking forward. This is not a negative, and I have said that at every step of the way as possible. This is about growth opportunity. This is about enhancing and growing the OSIDA mission. And I was talking to former OSIDA board member Bailey Siegfried, and I think he put it best when he said that the existing OSIDA structure had gotten them to a certain point. We'll say to suborbital, if we're going to go for the space analogy, which I'm going to have to work that into the speeches here. And we are going to take them to the stars and beyond. The successes that our agency has seen will hopefully translate into the OSIDA continued success and growth for many, many years and decades to come. There are really two main OSIDA mission sets, obviously different little minor missions and organizations and activities, but two major mission sets that are in the OSIDA responsibility area. That is the operation of the spaceport and industrial park, the 2,700-acre facility in western Oklahoma. You'll hear it referred to as Burns Flat. You'll hear it referred to as Clinton Sherman Airport. You'll hear it as the Oklahoma Air and Spaceport. It's got a bunch of different names. One of the items that we're going to be undertaking is a rebranding effort with your blessing. You'll see that here in the latter part of this agenda to try and figure out what is it that we're going to call this effort. Kind of how we rebranded the agency just a few years ago and changed our name. We're going to be undertaking this rebranding initiative for OSIDA as well. So operation of the spaceport and then space industry development statewide. You'll hear in a little bit from some of the esteemed gentlemen that are in the audience behind me. I think most of you know most of them, but you'll be introduced to them here in a moment. With the Artemis Group, the role that space industry has played over Oklahoma's many decades of being in this industry. From the early days of NASA to today, we have many companies that are either wholly focused on space or have a significant business set of space in their portfolio. And how can we as a state enhance that and grow that and make this a significant niche market for the overall aviation, aerospace, and defense industry for the great state of Oklahoma, going towards the goal, of course, of making this our #1 industry across the state. So those two mission sets have been divided up. The airports division team and the local on-the-ground talent from the airport manager to the maintenance folks will all now report up into the airports division team. And Nick Young, well, congratulations and condolences and congratulations, all congratulations. Their airport team has done amazing things over the last many, many years, as you've seen with the airport construction program, the projects that you guys just approved, and the litany of other projects that you have said grace over the many years. I suspect they will be able to take the physical spaceport, the industrial park, the airport to new levels that we've never seen before, whether that's infrastructure improvements, whether that's recruiting traditional aviation businesses, whether that's recruiting non-aviation aerospace companies. That's going to be a team effort led by the airports division. Space industry development is going to be Craig's responsibility. Craig will be doing space industry development statewide. He is going to be the point man for space industry development, whether that's launch activities at the spaceport, whether that's space manufacturing and space parts, whether that's space strategic planning, whether that's incentives for specifically the space industry. He's going to be crisscrossing the state, much like Paula Keaty has on aerospace and aviation education, trying to bring about significant successes and changes to the space industry for the state of Oklahoma. Of course, with much help to the Artemis Group and everything else that you'll hear here in the rest of the meeting. We hope and we plan to make this the next great thing for our aviation, aerospace, and defense industry. You look at the lineage of history across this state's industry, from pre-Wiley Post to Tom Stafford to where we're at today. We want to look back at this point in time in history and the decisions the legislature made, and we go, you know what? This changed the course of our industry for the great state of Oklahoma. And I think with the team that we have before us, we can be successful in that. I would ask that please ask as many questions as you need, as you want, whether here in an open meeting, if you want to have a private one-on-one conversation because you maybe don't fully understand a space role. I'm happy to have those conversations both online and offline to discuss these roles, these expectations, and how we're going to move things forward. The excitement is real, both from a young person's perspective, from an industry perspective, from Western Oklahoma's perspective, from the legislature's perspective. The excitement is real. We just had a full day meeting with a potential space company yesterday, and you could feel the excitement of everybody that we met with throughout the course of the day, and that they're still meeting with today. So 912, I think, has put some high responsibilities with you, the board, with us, the staff, and I think that we're going to be able to take the OSIDA mission set to the promised land and beyond, and I hope that each one of you will embark upon that journey with me and enjoy it and see the fruits of our labor for many, many years to come. I could sit here and talk about the nitty-gritty for hours, but that's not what we came here to hear. In fact, I think we came here to hear one individual speak in particular, but we also have some celebrations, some good announcements, some introductions that we want to make, and yes, we do at some point in time between now and the end of the year, preferably not the August meeting, because let's face it, who wants to be in Western Oklahoma in August? No offense, a little warm. But I would love to get you guys out there and see the spaceport, and we have an ODAA OSIDA meeting at the spaceport sometime between now and the end of the year. October might be the perfect time weather-wise to get out there, to see the lay of the land, to see it with your own eyes. If you haven't been out there before, there's a lot of pavement, there's a lot of land, and there's a lot of potential to see what activities are going to happen. And today you'll hear a lot about the successes that have gone on so far with the space realm, and you heard Sandra mention at the Paris Air Show the big Dawn announcement. That's going to be talked about, and certainly that's a big responsibility for OSIDA moving forward and a big success for OSIDA moving forward. And if other projects come to fruition, I can promise you those will be just as equally exciting, if not more exciting, for space industry in the state of Oklahoma. So that's what 912 is set up. You guys are now responsible for the operation and mission set of OSIDA and approving projects just like you do, and approving activities, approving strategic planning, approving expenditures just like you do for ODAA activities. I will run OSIDA on a day-to-day basis just like I run ODAA on a day-to-day basis. Rely upon the team and the experts that I have behind me to make sure that it's going to be successful. So again, I think it's going to be a great opportunity. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be hard work, but I think it's going to be rewarding for the state of Oklahoma. And I can promise you that, again, we'll be able to go to the stars and beyond with the success I think that we will have. So that being said, I believe the next agenda item is introduction to staff members. So we have two OSIDA staff members that are here today that have come over. Of course, I think most of you know Craig. Where's Craig? Right there, Craig Smith, your new Director of Space Industry Development, and JW in the finance operations procurement world, doing some amazing things for OSIDA. Been there. We'll do this here in a minute. 5 years. And then of course we're going to have a little bit of a retirement conversation about a former employee who came back to join us, and we can celebrate her in just a minute. But then once we get out to the spaceport, hopefully at that October meeting, we will see the maintenance team. We will see some of the other OSIDA team members that are now ODAA employees, and I would encourage you to welcome them and bring them into the fold. So, Chris, do we want to do the 5-year recognition? And Craig, why don't you join me up here? I haven't known JW for very long, but the little I don't know about JW is he's a hardworking Western Oklahoma guy, and I know he is fallen in love for space. I know his family has land in and around the area. He's been involved in the spaceport before it was a spaceport, back when it was a SAC base. I don't know if it goes back to the Navy era or not, but it sounds like it does. But he's served the great state of Oklahoma for 5 years, just like we heard from Thomas. Again, something was in the water back in that Q2 of 2020. Something about COVID, maybe, I don't know. But Craig, I wanted to offer up you the opportunity to say anything you want about JW before we bring him up here and let him speak.
You bet. Thank you very much. Good to meet everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and excited for the progress we're getting ready to go into. Yeah, JW's family, we'll tell you that their land was owned when the government came in and acquired it through an eminent domain to create the Naval Air Station at the time. And so one of the tenants now still rents from us, laughs that his grandfather used to own land that he now farms and rents from us. So, but JW has been with us. He started about the same time that I did. He's been training under our Kim, our chief financial officer, for the last 4 or 5 years, learning all the processes so that he can take this role over when she did ultimately retire. And he's embraced it with both hands, and he's just a good guy, hard worker, as Grayson alluded, a good Western Oklahoma work ethic, and we're certainly proud of him, and we're glad for 5 years and hopeful for several more. JW, they've got a
Come up and say a few words.
A, don't believe a single thing this guy says. But no, I'm flattered. It's truly been a unique experience coming on board 5 years ago, and really excited to have the opportunity to be a part of this organization moving forward.
Chairman, if you wouldn't mind coming down, and we'll do the obligatory picture again. Right here in front of the dais. All right, Craig, don't go too far.
And again, JW worked hard to learn the processes and learn all the rules, get all the certifications in order to take over the role of this young lady right here that has been with the agency since 2004. If you reflect back to 2004, that's when the rover landed on Mars. That's when Facebook was stood up. And now, a generation later, Kim is announced that she's going to retire and has retired. She retired on July 1, and Kim has seen the agency come through a lot of processes in that generation. She's seen the excitement of the initial spaceport and standing up at the agency of OSIDA. She's seen some excitement in those early years. She's seen the doldrums in the mid-years and the teens, and a condition where we saw that it looked like the legislature may even shut down the agency for a period of time. So she's carried us through. She's kept us between the ditches. She's kept us compliant. She's made sure that all of our audits have come through without any problems or any black marks or any challenges at all. And she's trained JW very well to continue that on, and we're excited about Kim's retirement. 21 years, 6 grandkids, and a lot of 7 grandkids.
7.5.
Breaking news today. Got 7.5. Kim, I think Chris has got something for you. Do I read this? All right, for 21 years of public service, faithful and dedicated years of service, public service requires continuing commitment and dedication to the goals and the needs of the people of Oklahoma. Very effective and efficiency of state government depends on large measure on the hard work and perseverance demonstrated by state employees. In recognition of their effort, contributions, and commitment to excellence of the Oklahoma State employees, I hereby publicly commend you and say congratulations on a job well done, Governor Kevin Stitt. Congratulations, Kevin. Absolutely.
I really don't have a whole lot to say, except it's been a ride. It's been a wild and crazy ride, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. This was my second career. I was a banker my first career, and this was my second career, and it was totally amazing, let me tell you. I'm just ready to hang up my hat and go spend some time with my grandkids while I still can, so thank you guys.
And to enjoy, her grandkids are involved in a lot of activities. And a lot of sports. And so as a retirement gift, we wanted you to have this. This would be something that you could.
Always use that, absolutely.
And Graham needs a rocker, right?
Graham does need a rocker. Thank you.
You want to try it out?
No. Might not get out of it.
All right. Thank you, Craig, and congratulations on your retirement, Kim, and your service to the state of Oklahoma. So congratulations. Okay. Next is item 6, Staff Services Agreement with ODAA. Grayson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bless you. So, as I'd mentioned in the overview of Senate Bill 912, one of the requirements of the law was all OSIDA employees become ODA employees, and then we as a team will serve the OSIDA mission set. And one of those requirements was for an agreement to be put in place for ODA employees to be able to serve OSIDA. Obviously, for this first year, as we figure this out, every employee of ODA needs to be authorized to do work for OSIDA. Clearly, some of the OSIDA team is going to be, or some of the ODA team is going to be 100% OSIDA mission focused. All the maintenance guys that are out there, 100%. Craig, as Space Industry Development, 100%. Joe, the airport manager, 100%. And that's the way we're going to, and the Cassie and JW will be 100% OSIDA mission set to start. Next year, once we've got a handle on what the first 12 months look like when we come to this point in time again, we may have some different percentages. We may have okay, Chris is 20% OSIDA, 80% ODA. Sanders, 75% ODA, 25% OSIDA. I'll have a percentage for mine as well. So right now, we're just going to have a blanket authorization that all staff can operate and work on OSIDA mission sets. And as we get a handle on what the percentages are going to be after this first 12 months, that will then influence year 2 and what that agreement would look like. So with that being said, staff would recommend approval for entering into an agreement between OSIDA and ODAA to provide the staff services for the OSIDA mission set.
Okay, thanks. Do we have a motion to approve item 6?
I so move.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I need to ask Grayson a little background. For the agreement you're talking about, there's not been developed yet. This is an approval for you to enter, they'd start working on those differences, bring them together? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, so we were asking for authorization to enter into an agreement. I have tasked our shared general counsel to draft up that kind of an agreement. And essentially what the agreement will say this first year is all ODA employees will be able to serve and operate as a part of the OSIDA mission set.
Just that simple.
As needed, just that simple. And then next year, once we have a handle on kind of time and hours and everything, percentage-wise, that agreement will say that same thing, but then it'll probably lay out as an estimate, here's each individual staff person's time on the various responsibilities.
Is there going to be a second requirement for you to bring to the board or the commission what an agreement ultimately would look like?
No,
Okay.
that this is authorizing that agreement to take
Got it.
place, and then I will, as the CEO, executive director, do the minutia of the
Understood.
agreement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One question. Will the funding come with them?
All,
Is the
you
funding
mean,
for
yes,
OS and
yes. So,
IDA?
well, let me think on how to answer that. We are not commingling funds because they are still an agency. They still have their own financial accounts. They have their own system. So, but yes, the legislature didn't sweep all the money away and made it start from scratch. Their money is still sitting in their accounts and is still going to pay for all the things that they have obligations to.
Okay.
But it's not, the money won't be commingled with ODA money. We have to keep the money separate because they're two separate, distinct entities.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, Michelle, call roll, please.
Board Member Phillips,
Aye.
Board Member Potter,
Aye.
Board Member Ortega,
Aye.
Board Member Ritz,
Aye.
Chairman Rainey,
Aye.
Board Member Putnam,
Aye.
Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is item 7, spending authority for the Chief Executive Officer. Grayson, please continue.
Sandra? Thank you. So just like I have a authority limit for ODAA, I need to seek approval to have you all delegate me some authority for spending. So to continue on with what the previous OSIDA authorities were, agreements up to $50,000 and then over $50,000 in the event of an emergency. Staff recommends approval for this, and I'll certainly answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Do we have a motion to approve item 7?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Is there any discussion? Call roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next order of business is item 8, lease agreement approval. Grayson, please continue.
Do we go straight from 8 to 11? Okay. All right. That's okay. That's all right. So we'll take item 8 as the, even though it won't be up on the screen. So item 8 is the, do I have permission to move forward with item 8?
What's that?
Permission to move forward with item
Yeah,
8?
move so.
Okay. And item 8 is the PAC approval, PAC lease agreement approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, before you is a lease agreement consideration for premium aerospace centers. In your packet, you will see a proposed lease area. It's a little shy of 12 acres. They are one of the heavy MRO tenants that is out at the spaceport. They currently have under lease one hangar that's existing, a second hangar that is under expansion, renovation, significant expansion and renovation. And this would be a third lease. This would be the first of the ground leases. The existing 2 leases they have are on existing buildings. But a lease agreement to enter into a 40-year lease for the construction of a large wide-body hangar, approximately 300 by 400 hangar, and the associated parking space there on the south and east sides of what they already have under lease. So you'll see in your packet, you'll have the actual legal description and lease area, and then the larger plan that they have and what Area A looks like within the larger area to give you guys a better representation of what that looks like on the OSIDA field. Even before this merger, I had been working on this with Craig and developing language and locations and planning this out. And so I would consider your approval to enter into this agreement. We've been working on this now for about the last 12 to 14 months, and we are ripe to enter into this agreement. This is about a $50 to $60 million investment in this hangar and the associated apron parking and vehicular parking area. And I certainly stand for any questions that you guys have, but staff recommends approval, and I think this is going to be a big leap forward for the spaceport and bring about a significant number of new jobs in the MRO business to the Clinton Sherman Airport.
Premium Aerospace, they work on wide-body aircraft?
Wide-body aircraft, yeah.
Okay.
They can work on others if they wanted, but primarily their business model is wide-body aircraft.
Okay.
And they've also worked on a military airplane, former military airplane, if you guys have been out to the Stafford Air and Space Museum and seen the F-117, they painted that.
Cool. Okay, do we have a motion to approve item 8?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Call roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
And Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving to item 9, lease agreement authority. Grayson, please continue.
So within the air park and the industrial park, there are existing short-term agreements and lease agreements with various aeronautical and non-aeronautical tenants. Similar to the authorization to spend of money as the CEO, we are requesting authorization to enter into lease agreements or take other actions, negotiate, renegotiate, extend for short-term, 5 years or less, the authority to vest that in me. So this will help get back and forth. You know, if we have somebody that wants to come in and rent, you know, a GA hangar for a couple of months, or if we have someone that wants to come rent a building for a year or two, I will have the authority to go out and do that on a less than 5-year basis.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve item 9?
I shall move.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman. Grayson, this is basically just flipping what Craig was doing into your authority. It's not adding or subtracting anything that he's been doing all along.
Yes, yeah, this is the same thing that Craig would have had the authorizations
That's
to
correct.
do as the executive director pre-July 1st, and now I'm entering into that role and trying to get those
Got
authorizations
it.
from this new board. And
Yep.
we'll talk a little bit about that in a future item, about some things that, you know, the previous board has done that this new board will have to redo based on timing and everything. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Call roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
And Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next order of business is item 10, Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority Administrative Rules. Michelle, you're recognized.
Good morning again. So for item 10, staff is seeking approval to move forward with the administrative rulemaking process. OSIDA currently operates without any specified administrative rules, so staff will be reviewing and determining what administrative code we do recommend be brought before the board at a later time for considerations. This is just to begin the process. So I will stand for any questions. Staff does recommend approval.
We have a motion to approve item 10.
I'll make a motion to approve. Go ahead.
Okay, you second. Okay. Is there any discussion?
What drives the requirement to have administrative rules? That's kind of the chicken and egg question, I guess, but I know we have them for the,
All of the agencies have it.
is it required by state law?
Test, okay, there we go. So administrative rule, so you have law, and you have administrative rules, which helps interpret and essentially dive into the details. So if a law were to say, you can enter into agreements, well, what kind of agreements can I enter into? The administrative rules clarifies that. Now, the administrative rules can't give you authority that you don't already have by law, but the administrative rules is the regulatory document where you can delve into the details, which the theory was laws were supposed to be simple and basic. The administrative rules were the more detailed process. Now, I know that's kind of gotten a little bit messed up over history of governments, but in theory, the administrative rules helps interpret and give both the staff, the board, and the public a better understanding of how the agency is supposed to operate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, call roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
And Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is item 11, Artemis Group Update. Craig, you're recognized to present and introduce the Artemis team.
Thank you very much. 25 years ago, 26 years ago, when the agency was stood up, there was by the legislature, the idea was to adopt and to bring space industry to the state of Oklahoma, to develop the space industry. A couple of executive directors through that process, and a lot of different iterations of companies that have come to the state and said, hey, we've got this space capability, we've got this space idea. It's been challenging. We've had some that just didn't work out, didn't pan out. And for a number of years, we've kind of looked at what is Oklahoma capable of doing? What is capable of a landlocked inland spaceport licensed by the FAA. There's only 14 of us in the United States. Only 10 states have an FAA licensed spaceport. And so we've asked the question for a number of years. We've gone to trade shows, we've waved the banner. My predecessor probably wore a sandwich board to some of the space shows saying, hey, I've got a spaceport, ask me about it. And so when I came on board, we asked the question, what is Oklahoma capable of? What can we do with this spaceport? Who's our customer? Who's our tenant? What are we trying to attract here? And then we'd still get companies that would come to us and say, hey, we've got this capability. And so we'd look at them and think, well, I don't know much about what you do. Let's ask some more questions. And so we started looking for subject matter experts. At the time, I had my 7-member board of directors who had expertise in various areas, and we'd all look at each other and go, I don't know what to do with this one. How do we move forward on this? And so, as luck would have it, we've got a gentleman that lives in this state of Oklahoma who has a passion for space. And we got to visiting with him and his team, and we asked the question, what can we do? And so the solution is I don't know everything, my board didn't know everything, but we wanted to put wise people, smart people in places that can help us make those decisions. We looked at our capabilities as an agency, and we realized that we could acquire the services of this individual and his capabilities and his wisdom and his knowledge. And we established an agreement with them that established for us the Oklahoma Space Renaissance Vision. And they put together that for us and said, here's what Oklahoma is capable or is potentially capable of doing. And then we also asked them, said, well, while you're at this, can you help us go and look at and attract companies to Oklahoma to look at what we may have available here? And I can tell you, and Sandra talked about going to international space in air shows and touting the capabilities of your state. I went to Farnborough with this gentleman about 3 or 4 years ago, and we went over to the space. There's divisions at air shows, and so there's a whole building dedicated to space. And I got to walk around with this gentleman at the space building, and it was like walking around with Michael Jordan at an NBA game. People were running up and taking photographs of us and getting selfies with us, and newspaper reporters were chasing us down. It was pretty exciting, but we have drawn upon the capabilities of the agency, and we've acquired the services at the Artemis Group, which is led by former Navy man, former U.S. Congressman, and former and previous NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. And so we've asked is that at each meeting to the board, we have a presentation from the Artemis Group to talk about where we are in space, what agencies and what companies are we talking with, and then we can also bounce ideas off them as we get companies that approach us. We can say, hey, does this company have legs? Is this something we need to continue to pursue, or is this something we set on the back burner or maybe back in the cupboard for a while? And so they've been able to present for us. Gabe Sherman, who is his chief of staff at NASA and also his chief of staff in Congress, has been very helpful in attending meetings with us as early as or as late as yesterday, talking with companies. And so we have the privilege today to hear from somebody who I think every time he speaks is worthy of a TED Talk. It's worthy of recording. And his call sign when he was in the Navy is brainstem. Can I have Mr. Bridenstine come up and present for the Artemis Group, and I think he'll be followed by Gabe Sherman. We'll give some detail on what they've been able to cover. Good job, sir.
Thank you, Craig. That was a very nice intro, and now I've got to live up to it. But I appreciate it. Before we get started, welcome all of you to space. We are excited about being a part of this and seeing what we can do in the state of Oklahoma to make space a big part of our economy, not just today, but even 100 years from now, because this is going to be a growing industry for a long time. Before I get started, I want to talk, and I know Board Member Potter and I talked earlier. He wanted me to give a long presentation about all the things we're doing for the next 2 hours. I'm not going to do that, but I do want to take a moment to recognize Craig Campbell. I think this is your first meeting, is that correct?
Sir. Yes.
So, Lieutenant General Craig Campbell, Lieutenant Governor Craig Campbell, a good friend Craig Campbell, somebody who I got to know when he was running a spaceport in Alaska. And quite frankly, he initiated a whisper campaign that resulted in me doing a number of interviews and ultimately being the NASA administrator. So it's amazing to have you here in the state of Oklahoma and serving on this board. Thank you.
My pleasure.
A couple of things I think are important to note. Space industry in the United States is about a $400 billion annual industry, greater than $400 billion today. And by 2030, a lot of reports have indicated from very sophisticated people in the financial industry have indicated it's going to be well over $1 trillion by the year 2030. That means we've got to do something today to be in front of this because it's going to continue to grow. And if we do it right, I think the space industry in Oklahoma can be much like the aviation industry in Oklahoma. You go back to the 1920s. In the state of Oklahoma, it was the oil men who had the vision. They wanted to sell more oil, and they said, we need to promote the aviation industry. And so they invested heavily in air shows, which I know we heard today about an air show. They invested heavily in air shows and air races, and they created this industry that really blossomed. And because it was Oklahoma oil folks that did this back in the 1920s, we have this amazing aviation industry here in the state of Oklahoma. And as the 1920s were then, I think the 2020s are today, except it's not aviation, it's space. We're at the beginning. We talked about a history that Oklahoma has, but this is just the beginning. It's growing rapidly, and if we do the right things today, 100 years from now, people are going to look back and say, wow, they had great vision. Just like today, we look back at the 1920s and we say, our oil leaders in those days had great vision, and Oklahoma is now benefiting from it. So I kind of want to set that stage, the history. The state of Oklahoma, we've been involved in space, as it was noted earlier, since the beginning of the space program. We go back to the Saturn rockets that took Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the moon. The outside components, the structures of those rockets were built in the city of Tulsa. If you go to the space shuttles, the bay doors on the space shuttles were built in Tulsa. The big devices that pick the shuttle up and make it vertical for the launch stack were built in Tulsa. Seth, you're the first district guy. I see you nodding. So these are all things that we got involved in, but it goes beyond that. All the truss structures on the International Space Station, the largest devices in space, were built in Tulsa, and those are still flying today, and in fact getting extended by Congress even as recently as last week. So these are great historical perspectives, but when the space shuttles retired, we lost a lot of that. The difference is today, it's not government-owned and operated systems, it's commercial systems. And we have a real opportunity to attract that kind of industry to our state. Last year, Texas stood up the Texas Space Commission. And they didn't just stand up the Texas Space Commission, they gave it $300 million. Might have been $350 million. And of that, a big chunk of it went down to the Johnson Space Center area for research with NASA. But another $150 million was set aside specifically just for the ability to attract new industry to Texas from around the country. And I'm not saying that we need to compete with that in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not even saying that that's a bad thing. What I am saying is because they're doing that, there's going to be a lot of overflow. A lot of companies that are looking at that opportunity could then say, well, we didn't get it, but we've got an opportunity in the state of Oklahoma, and we should benefit from it, and we should piggyback on it. Gabe Sherman, my chief of staff at NASA, is going to give a presentation about some of the companies we've been talking to and, in fact, have already attracted to come to the state of Oklahoma. But I think it's important to note, I'll just kind of talk about some of the big industries we see as an opportunity. When we talk about space, we used to build multi-billion-dollar Battlestar Galactica massive satellites. We do that today still. However, we're also building lots of satellites. We're talking about thousands or tens of thousands of satellites that are much smaller, less expensive. They go into different orbits. We're building resiliency into the architecture because the enemies of the United States are targeting satellites. So we need resiliency. Part of that resiliency is redundancy, and it's complicating the targeting solution for the enemy. We do that with thousands of satellites. But those thousands of satellites all need something that right now is not available in the market, but it's going to develop quickly. And it is available. It's just not available in the quantities necessary. And that is propulsion. I'm not talking about big rockets that take off launch pads, although I will talk about that. I'm talking about in-space propulsion for satellites that are trying to get out of the way of debris. They're trying to maintain their orbits, maybe get out of the way of a threat, maybe do different and unique things to be unpredictable in space. That type of propulsion is going to be in high demand. It already is. We just don't have the supply yet. And I think it's very important for us as a state to consider that as a real opportunity. Thrusters, how do we move in space? Very important. So I think that's where we need to look. I also think it's important, we have a spaceport, and I know Craig knows something about spaceports. We have this asset where we can get access to microgravity. So with a spaceport, it's licensed for suborbital launches. We need to look at how do we get in other words, we can go to space without going into orbit. What does that mean? We can take off and land from the same spot. We can get 2 to 5 minutes of microgravity or weightlessness. That has huge implications when it comes to advanced materials, when it comes to new pharmaceuticals, and beyond that, regenerative medicine, the 3D printing of human organs, these types of things which we are proving on the International Space Station today that are being commercialized as we speak. We need to be right in the heart of that because we have a spaceport and we can get 2 to 5 minutes of microgravity time, and all of that sets up the opportunity to fly things further into orbit. So we want to talk about microgravity, we want to talk about suborbital space, and we want to talk about in-space propulsion. I think those are all areas where the state of Oklahoma, if we had a strategy, we could lead not just the United States, but we could lead, in fact, the world. And I think that should be our objective. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gabe Sherman. He's got a few slides to talk about some companies that we've been working with.
All right. Well, look, it's an honor to be standing before you guys today and to meet each and every one of you guys. Look forward to spending more time. Mr. Potter, know you pretty well. Mr. Campbell, my wife, I don't know if she'd thank you for that effort at this point after having to move out of Oklahoma and up to Virginia, but well, we appreciated the support, and it was quite
Well,
the
don't
ride.
blame me.
I know.
That's
I'm
individual
going to tell her
decision.
now that I found the person to blame.
No,
so.
you asked for it.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, but no, it's been great to actually go work in the space industry and then come back to Oklahoma and say, man, wouldn't that be great if we were doing things in space here? That was one of those conversations I had with my daughters when we were at NASA and we'd go to launches and we'd go all over the country doing space stuff. They'd always look at me and say, Dad, how come we aren't doing any of this stuff back home? And so for us to be able to come back home and be able to influence this particular industry and show people what Oklahoma has to offer has been really exciting for all of us. And so just these are some quick highlights. Whenever we presented the Oklahoma Space Renaissance vision to OSIDA, the idea was if we want spaceport utilization, we can't just focus on spaceport utilization. What we have to do is we have to build demand. We have to build the industry statewide. We have to give people a reason to be here. We have to give them not only the infrastructure to be here, but the workforce and other capabilities across the state to say, okay, now there's a reason to come be in the state of Oklahoma, and there's a reason to consider launching from the state of Oklahoma. And so what we came to OSIDA with was not just hey, here's how we get stuff to space from the spaceport. It's here's how we approach the state as a whole, and here are some of the key capabilities that we need to develop and the key companies we need to attract so we can drive spaceport utilization. And I'll tell you, it's working. Like, it's already working. So a few companies here up on the board that you'll see or on these slides are important to take note of. You look at Dawn Aerospace. We just had the most recent announcement with Dawn, who will be flying to suborbital space from the spaceport in 2027. That's a huge accomplishment. And with the cadence of that vehicle, how many flights they can do on a given day, week, month, year, we have the potential to become one of the busiest spaceports in the nation because of that relationship. And that is driven by microgravity, as Jim said. There are a number of companies that are looking at doing pharmaceutical research, semiconductor research, a number of different capabilities that are being developed in microgravity that with just a few minutes at a time in an iterative process, and they can take great strides towards commercializing whatever capability they're working on. And so the Dawn vehicle is going to facilitate that, and it is a huge win. I think for a long time, everybody looked at the spaceport and said, when are we going to see a rocket lift off out of there and go to space? That's not what we're licensed to do here in the state of Oklahoma. And so trying to fix that perception has been one objective, but then trying to find the right opportunity to fly horizontal to suborbital space, be in microgravity for 3 to 5 minutes, and come back. That is what we are ready to do here at the spaceport. And that's what Dawn has seen, is that this is the right state, the right place to enter into their first U.S., to put the very first vehicle, their first vehicle in the U.S., at our spaceport and move forward. So Dawn is incredibly important. Sierra Space is another one. Sierra Space has Dream Chaser. You guys have probably seen that vehicle. Looks like a small space shuttle. They're going to start flying that vehicle. We're hopeful in 2026. And then we think there are opportunities for us to have Sierra Space land that vehicle out at the spaceport on return missions from the International Space Station and future commercial space stations. There's Frontier Electronic Systems. You see them up there. That's an Oklahoma company right in Stillwater, Oklahoma. But there are a number of things that they are doing now because we've got them engaged in the commercial space industry. They're finding their way in commercial space. A number of these others are either working in microgravity, propulsion, or developing capabilities in suborbital space that could be beneficial to the state of Oklahoma. And so we're engaged in a number of those conversations right now. If we can go to that next slide, Sandra. So whenever you think about the state more broadly, okay, this is just a high-level overview of some of the things that we see right now and are actively working and will continue to work in this new arrangement. We, again, have taken a statewide approach to this. So whenever you start thinking about the Oklahoma Air and Spaceport, that is one of our, there are a number of things that we can be doing out there. Testing, large engine testing is something that we think that spaceport is uniquely suited for. Whenever you start to think about microgravity, it's not just flying to suborbital space and coming back. It's having the payload, the processing facilities for when those experiments come back to actually do the work on site, right, to help mature those technologies and capabilities as they move through that iterative process. And so we think those are some major opportunities for us out there at the spaceport. As we move into Oklahoma City and start kind of looking at our skill sets and opportunities in this particular area, with proximity to the spaceport, and the company that was here yesterday was echoing this. You know, there are opportunities not only to fly out of the spaceport, but we have a great manufacturing workforce in this area that is very familiar with all things aerospace. And so whenever you look at opportunities to both fly or test and manufacture in proximity, that's very attractive to the space industry. So tying those two things together has been important in a lot of the conversations we've been having. Whenever you get up to Tulsa, this is what Jim was talking about earlier, we're talking about testing and creating a kind of a hub of space activities in the Tulsa area, anchored by Agile Space's hypergolic test facility, which that was the first company to land and kind of in this new effort. The very first deal that we signed was with Agile, and this was in August of last year. And so they are building a $20 million hypergolic test facility in the Tulsa area. It will start creating a space cluster because at that particular facility, all of the thrusters that are required to move in space, anything that's going to get to space has to test first, right? And that's an entire process. And we have a nationwide shortage of hypergolic testing and access to it. So with that facility, again, that will not only drive testing, it will also drive manufacturing opportunities around that facility and create a very nice cluster there in the city of Tulsa. And then statewide, I think the microgravity piece is something that's, again, really, really interesting for us. Whenever you guys think about microgravity, think about it in seconds, minutes, and longer duration. Seconds, we have opportunities to leverage the spaceport to maybe even provide infrastructure for drop towers and seconds of microgravity testing that is valuable as people work through this process of developing their capabilities. That moves into the minutes, which is Dawn Aerospace with the vehicle flying to suborbital space. And eventually, that could be the long duration activities where we are participating, we're a part of the ConOps of a Sierra Space or longer term vehicle that is loitering in space for a series of months or even longer, and then returning here to Oklahoma in a couple different areas. We have the opportunity to land vehicles out at the spaceport. We also have opportunities that we're working in the state for just entry, descent, landing activities under parachute with returns from space. So there is a lot there. The cool part about Oklahoma is we have tremendous research universities, and we also have opportunities to commercialize some of these activities that are taking place in microgravity on the pharmaceutical and life sciences side and the semiconductor side. So there's a lot going on. There's a number of different thrusts that we're pursuing right now. And I think what we are doing is we put Oklahoma on the map. We went to Space Symposium this year. Some of the ODAA representatives were out there with us, along with the OSIDA representatives, along with the lieutenant governor. And people are coming to us to talk about Oklahoma now. It was, can we get a meeting out there with anybody to get interested in Oklahoma? And now we have people lining up to have discussions about what's happening here. So a lot of that has been the support that we've received from in the legislature, from the OSIDA team, and from the ODAA team as we've made this transition. So it's an honor to be standing in front of you guys, to have these opportunities. We're going to continue to work hard for the state of Oklahoma. And like Craig said, monthly, you'll probably see me. Occasionally, we'll get Jim down here. But we'll give you updates, keep you apprised to everything that's going on, and be working hand in glove with Grayson and the team. Any questions?
Impressive.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you going forward. Next is item 12, request for qualification for infrastructure management system. Grayson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of RFQ call for projects here in the next 3 items. This is just some of the initial activities that we have seen over the last 35 days with this transition. We know the foundation for the success of the spaceport is its infrastructure. One of the things, there's a lot of stuff out there that we just don't know about, or it's hidden in paper copies of 1970s, 1980s, 1940s documents, depending on what was built when. And so we would like to go out for an RFQ for a total infrastructure management system, particularly a GIS-based infrastructure management system that will help us get our hands wrapped around the status of the spaceport, its associated infrastructure, and then, of course, what do we need to do moving forward to make sure that we can maintain this great asset that we have for the state of Oklahoma. So this is just to start the RFQ procedure. We'll come back to you with a selection and then come back to you with a contract, hopefully in the next 6 to 9 months or so.
Thanks. We have a motion to approve item 12.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, I got a second. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Our next order of business is item 13, request for proposals for marketing and branding initiative. Grayson, please continue.
As I mentioned in the introduction of Senate Bill 912 and what it does for OSIDA and ODAA, one of the things that we would like to take a look at is a total rebranding and marketing initiative for OSIDA, particularly the Oklahoma Air and Spaceport, the Clinton Sherman Airport, and space industry development statewide as a whole. We don't really know what this looks like, but I think given the change, given the efforts ongoing, given some of the recommendations and advice I've gotten from the legislature and statewide leaders, they suggested that we go embark on a rebranding effort, if for nothing more, to bring about some marketing and PR and activity to Oklahoma, which helps then Gabe, Jim, and team sell the state of Oklahoma when it comes to space. So again, this is just to go out for RFP. We'll come back to you with a selection contract at a future date, hopefully in the next, this one might be a little quicker, hopefully in the next maybe, we'll say 2 to 5 months.
Do we have a motion to approve item 13?
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just commend Grayson and the team for doing this. Little history of Alaska, we were called the Kodiak Launch Complex. Nobody cared about that. We rebranded to the Pacific Spaceport Complex Alaska, and all of a sudden we had private sector interest. So I think this could generate exactly what you're looking for. The right buzz will go on for Oklahoma with a good plan. Thank you.
That's good.
If we got any ideas, any pie in the sky names, thoughts, please share them with Sandra. I am not the creative spirit here, so this is not going to be my jam.
All right, call the roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have item 14, request for space education projects. Grayson, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a little bit of background here. The previous OSIDA board had a meeting a couple of Fridays ago prior to their sunsetting at the end of June. They had been working with some educational entities throughout the state of Oklahoma to try and get some grants out the door. The OSIDA has an account with about $160,000 in it from a former grant they received, a federal grant that they received for educational related activities. Those approvals that the previous board did were not able to be made through based on just the timing of the end of the calendar, or end of the fiscal year, end of the month, weren't able to get those executed. So based on the advice of council, this board would have to approve that under my authority as the CEO. Given that, I would like to do a call for proposals, call for projects, almost kind of like how we do on aviation aerospace education every year. Although this would be more probably a one or a two-time opportunity because we don't have a recurring pot of money like we do on ODAA's side. But like to see statewide call for space education proposals. I know there's some great opportunities out there. Just learned about one yesterday from OSU, and see what we get beyond just the 4 projects that were approved. We may come back to you and say we've got requests to cover all $160,000. We may say, well, we really just, in addition to the $40,000 that was previously considered as an award, maybe here's an extra 40, and we're going to do 80. We'll break it up, do 80 this year, maybe 80 next year. But we would like to go out and call for an open, or like to start an open call for projects for space education opportunities, and obviously use Sandra's in the team's marketing list to go statewide with that effort.
Grayson, are they, have they looked into tying into the NASA education side?
Well, that's
NASA
where
has a big outreach for education.
Yes, we would definitely look to NASA, and that's where the original grant came from. It was an original NASA grant, and that's where the money originally came from. So I would love to try and make this a regular recurring activity. I don't have any guarantees that it will be a regular recurring activity, given the pot of money we have is basically a one-time grant allocation from many, many years ago. And that's one of my questions. We're going to have a school session with Jim and Gabe here after lunch, and that was one of the first questions on the list was what educational opportunities does NASA provide, and do they have any of those kinds of grant programs that we could potentially go after?
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Do we have a motion to approve item 14?
Mr. Director, if I may, Mr. Chairman, so you're suggesting looking at a different avenue on what was originally proposed from the OSIDA board on this particular pot of money. Are you going to be looking at the possibility of expanding that amount of money?
Correct, yes.
Those funds?
The previous award was right about $40,000, give or take, over 4 different projects. There really wasn't a broad call for projects. It was just kind of we know this entity and we know they have some space activities going on. We'd love to give them some educational funds. So in the spirit of transparency and openness, I would like to broaden that horizon to see what other projects we have around the state. Not guaranteeing we're going to go with those 4, but I've assured those 4 that they have good projects. I've seen the projects, and I suspect that based on what projects they put forth, that staff would probably bring those 4 projects plus something else. If we get something else, if we don't get something else, it's just those 4, then so be it. But I would like to, in the effort of honesty, transparency, and openness, have a statewide call for space projects to see what
For the amount of money that we have.
For the amount of money we have, the $160
And-
some odd thousand dollars that we have, yes.
But there hasn't been any commitment on.
There's been no commitments,
Okay.
no.
Very good, thank you.
Look for a motion for item 14.
Move to approve. Second.
Second?
Okay, is there any further
We'll all
discussion?
jump in.
If there's no further discussion, call roll, please.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Potter.
Aye.
Board Member Ortega.
Aye.
Board Member Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Putnam.
Aye.
Board Member Campbell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is item 15, concluding remarks. Are there any additional comments from staff or members?
The only thing I would mention, Mr. Chairman, is what I've already said. I think this is going to be a great opportunity. I would ask for some flexibility with the board, that we may have to have some special call meetings between now and the next 12 months just to address some issues that maybe we haven't foreseen. We'll try and schedule those as best we can with the regular meetings, August, October, December, and then obviously the slate is it'll wrap around again next year, likely January, March, May, July, et cetera, et cetera. But we may have to have a special call in September or November or February or whatever it might be. We will try and minimize that as much as possible. But of course, we want this effort to be successful. And sometimes we may have to request actions from you in between that 2-month window. So just be cognizant of that. My new executive assistant, who starts on the 21st, will be reaching out to you, and I'm sure trying to get some of those dates lined up. And if we end up going to the physical spaceport in October, we'll let you know that as well, well in advance of deciding to go out there.
Any other remarks? Okay, hearing none. Next item, 16, announcement of next meeting, or next scheduled meeting will be at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, August 6th, 2025, here in the first floor conference room at the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Next up, item 17. Grayson, is there any new business? Hearing none, we'll move to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I shall move.
Second.
I declare this meeting adjourned.